It's so funny
I
with
love
that.
that little voice. All right. Okay, welcome. For those of you watching this video, we are going to be interviewing Cyndia, my new friend. I was just calling her my credit lady. So she is all knowing in the credit world. And so I'm just super excited to get to interview her and excited to also learn more about credit scores myself because it's something that sometimes I feel like I know a little bit about, but then when it really comes down to it and people ask me questions, I'm like, you know what? I actually don't know. So that is what we are here to do today is talk about credit and kind of just, yeah, the building blocks of it, what goes behind your credit score. And we can even go into some tips on just how to improve your credit, especially getting prepared for things like buying a house or just in general getting a loan. So with that, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to us and yeah, tell us a little bit more about you and your company in general.
So thank you so much, Katie, for allowing me to be here today. So I am Cyndia Rivera, and my business is Family Finances Redesigned. I am also a financial coach like you, but I also do credit improvement coaching. And my husband and I, just a little background on me. My husband and I have been married going on 30 years in a couple weeks.
Yay.
And yes, we have two children. Our daughter is 28, Jasmine, and Daniel is 16. I always tell people we're the parents of three fur babies as well. We have three dogs, Nala, Molly, and Toby. Um, and before I became a financial coach, I was the administrative assistant to the chief of police here in Claremont. And I launched my business in 2017. But I say I've been a financial coach for years because I've done it with family members, but professionally since going on 5 years now. And it's been exciting just watching that transformation that happened in the families. I'm sure that you can relate to that as well.
Yeah.
But I've also picked up on the credit improvement coaching. And what I do as a credit improvement coach is I help clients or I educate clients on how to repair their credit on their own. A lot of people who have poor credit don't know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to get started. They don't, a lot of times they don't even understand what the credit is. They don't know how to read their credit reports. They don't even check their credit reports often. Like I talked to someone this morning who reached out to me and we talked about her credit. And I asked her, well, when was the last time you checked your credit report? She said she doesn't even remember. So the reason I bring that up is that it's really important that you check your credit report because you don't know what's on there. You
Yep.
don't know, there could be some fraudulent activity which can affect you when you're trying to apply for a loan for a home or a car or whatever, right?
Yep.
Um, so it's important to know what your credit, what's on your credit. And there's lots of other things. You could have personal information incorrect. My husband had my middle name for the longest on his credit report. He doesn't even have a middle name. So we
What?
fixed that. But then going back to so going back to what I was saying is uh, people don't know what to do. So they go, they want to apply, they want a house, and when they go see a lender, the lender will say, but you have all of these things on your credit report. You have all these late payments, or you have all these things in collections, and your credit score is low, and all the list goes on, right? And you need to work on this before you can get a loan. How do they work on it?
Yep.
So they may refer them to a credit repair company. The problem with the credit repair company is they can be very expensive. You can pay minimum of $250 a person per month for them to do something that you can already do. And not only that, if they're able to get something removed from your credit report, they will also charge per account that is being removed. per credit report. So imagine how much that is.
Yeah.
And this could go on and on and on. I mean, it could go for months, it can go for a year. And I see it like all that money that you're spending with a credit repair company, you could be saving that money
Yeah.
in a savings account, right? Or paying off debt. And people don't understand that. And not only that, there are credit repair companies that scam. They scam you, and you need to be very, very careful of that. Like, you really need to do your homework if you decide to hire a credit repair company. I mean, I'm not going to tell someone don't do it. I mean, you just be very, very careful. Do your homework. If a credit repair company says, "Oh, we guarantee we can delete this off your credit report," that's a red flag right there, because they cannot do that. They have to go through the process of disputing things on your behalf. The same thing you will need to do, but it's going to be so much cheaper if you do it.
Yeah.
So I will educate a client on how to do that themselves. So I will teach them how to read the reports, what a FICO score is, what a lender is looking for. If there's something that needs to be disputed, I will show them how to do it. I will provide them the templates, the letters that they need, who they need to send them to, how to deal with debt collectors, how to negotiate with them. So I will do all of that with them in a 45-minute session. We'll go through all of that and save them a whole bunch of money.
I like the sound of that.
Right. I think we have a question, right?
Yes. Honestly, before we get to that, really quick, I want to kind of know a little bit more about the basics of like the building blocks to a credit score. So kind of like, what are the main makeups that determine somebody's credit score as good or bad?
Basically is, in order for you, the credit bureaus, in order for them to give you a score, you have to have debt. Unfortunately, there has to be debt, right? But not only have debt, you have to pay your bills on time. So you have to manage the debt wisely. So the credit bureaus are going to look at that, and they're going to see, are you paying your bills on time? How much debt do you have? How many times are you having your credit pulled? Hard inquiries is very, very important. How many times you're in? What kind of credit do you have? Do you have credit cards? Do you have, so they want to see your credit mix. Do you have student loans, auto payments, a mortgage, all of that. So they base your credit score. It's based on hard inquiries, your credit mix, how many accounts you have, what your payment history is, and it's the other thing right here, because I know I have it right in front of me. The types of credit, your credit history, new credit. Oh, credit history, that's the one I missed. How long have you had credit, right? So the longer the credit, the better for you. But it takes time, right? It takes time. So if you are a person who's 30 years old, you may only have credit of 5-10 years. One thing people don't think about is that if they close an account, whether it's good or bad, if you close that account, it stops reporting.
Yep.
That will hurt your credit. So there's lots of things that will affect your credit score. And some people who are, how would I say it? They're constantly watching their credit. It could drive them crazy. They're like, what happened? My score was this, and now it just went down 15 points. What happened? Oh my gosh. And it's like, I tell them, oh my God, don't drive yourself crazy. Don't drive yourself, don't watch that credit score. It will drive you nuts,
Totally.
Just know that it's never going to stay stable. It just will not. As you use your credit cards, it just will go up and down. What you need to do is just maintain it. So the basics of it is make sure that you're making your payments on time. That is really important. If you don't do that, your credit score, just miss one payment, you can drop easily 25 points, easily, or up to 100 points just because you missed a payment. Not only that, when they're trying to apply for a house, a lender will look at that. They don't like to see any late payments. So it's going to hurt you two ways. So you want to make sure that you're making your payments on time. You want to make sure that you're checking your credit report, because if there is fraudulent activity, you want to dispute that as quickly as possible. And it could take some time. Another thing is people don't understand is while they're disputing something, a lender, it's going to be hard to get a loan for a house because you're in the middle of a dispute. That's why if you're thinking about buying a home, I'd say if you're thinking of buying a home a year from now, 6 months to a year, start working on your credit now. Because it's a process, it takes time. And if you're in the middle of that, it's going to be hard for you to get a loan to get a house.
Yeah. So I have a current client right now, and we've been going through all of their bank statements and just like all of their accounts. And we found that this client has a credit card they totally forgot about, with a $10,000 balance. And he had looked at his credit report recently and he saw the number but didn't go through it and was like, man, why is my credit like lowering? But he didn't need the credit score, so he didn't look further into it. So I do want to ask, kind of in those situations, and you had mentioned it's really important just to kind of keep an eye on it, like just check it every now and then. Where's a good place for someone to kind of just keep an eye on it? So this client obviously doesn't need the credit score right now, so it's a good thing because they're not planning on using any loan or getting any loans anytime soon. But now that we know, he can start working on paying it off. So I was just expressing like, hey, we should, I recommended keeping an eye on it more often. And
Right.
so where would you recommend someone kind of keep an eye or just watch their credit score, including, and not just like the score, but also just seeing like the full report of like, hey, there's a credit card balance on my credit report.
So there's several places. Annualcreditreport.com. It's free. And they used to only allow you to pull your credit report once a year. And I have to investigate, because I heard since COVID, you were allowed to do it now, every month or so. Either way, whether it's once a year or every month, you can get all of your 3 credit reports there. If it's only once a year, what I recommend is, for example, 1 quarter, go in and pull 1 credit report, say TransUnion. Second quarter, go in and pull Equifax. Third quarter, go in and pull Experian. And then the following year, go back to that and do it again. If it's every month, then pull all 3 of them every month. Why do I recommend this? Is because if you can catch something on TransUnion, the faster you catch that than waiting an entire year to go back and pull it, it's better for you. Yeah. So annualcreditreport.com. Credit Karma has TransUnion and Equifax. So you can pull your credit reports there. You can monitor it on your app all the time. And you can go to Experian.com, USAExperian.com, to get the Experian report. Now with the Experian, you'll get the actual FICO score. So that is your score. So you can get that from there. Now, Credit Karma has a score, but that is not your FICO score. So I always say, please, 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 please do not think that that is your FICO score. That is a Vantage score. That is, I really don't know who uses the Vantage score, but I know lenders don't use that.
Interesting.
Lenders use a FICO score. Mm-hmm. And the one you see in the USA in Experian, it's a FICO 8. So I just want to say, there's like 28 different methods to calculate scores. And I won't even get into all of them, because I'll tell you the truth, I'm not even into all of those. I just know that lenders use a FICO score, and I think it's a FICO 2. So how they calculate it, I don't know. But at least if you're looking at your FICO scores, you'll get an idea of where you're at. Credit Karma, don't depend on that. I have seen people who have looked at Credit Karma, and Credit Karma will say your score is 680. And when they go to the lender pulls their credit and they do their own, method of scoring. Their scores are on like 600. And it's like a shock. What are you talking about? Credit Karma says this, and the lender will say, well, we don't use Credit Karma because that is not your score. So if you can just remember it, please do not rely on that score. The only thing about Credit Karma that's good is looking at your Equifax and TransUnion. The scores you'll see that'll go up and down. That just means that something changed on your report. That's what it means. But do not ignore those scores. Ignore the fact that they say, oh, your file is very thin. You should apply for this credit card. You can definitely get this credit card because of your score. Please don't do that. They're doing that because they're going to get money from that, because they're promoting for these credit cards. So please don't fall for that. So go to those 3 sites and you can pull your credit reports. It does not hurt you to pull your own credit reports. You should definitely take advantage of that. They are free. That way you can monitor it. If something like the client or the person you were talking about sees that, immediately they can take action, because it'll show who has that collection now, and they can reach out to that debt collector and try and negotiate with them and see how they can lower that and settle with them and take care of the payments.
Mm-hmm. So what about someone who isn't looking to buy a house or get a loan for anything? Would you, or I guess, what else can credit scores be used for, if anything?
So if they're not looking to buy a house, the credit score can be used to, they need to get a car. It's really important that if they are thinking about getting a car, I don't care for loans. That's me. I have a mortgage, but the mortgage is, a house is an investment, and we're trying to knock that off as fast as we can. Sometimes there's a situation where you have to get a car, right? If you have a low credit score, you're going to have a high interest rate. So you could be paying, say you're getting a vehicle for $36,000 and you get I don't know, 8% or something like that, whatever it is. You could be paying $45,000 for a car, right? But if you have a good credit score, there's a good chance you're going to get like less than 3%, depending on what this deal is out there. You could probably even get 0% interest rate on a vehicle, which is good, or even go through your credit union. So having a good credit score is going to benefit you if you're trying to get a vehicle. If you're needing to apply for a credit card, it makes a difference as well. Having a good credit score is going to, first of all, help get approval for that credit card and get a lower interest rate for the credit card. If you're needing to get a personal loan for something, that's going to help you as well. So it makes a difference to have a good credit score, but hopefully you don't have to get any of those loans, right? And you're putting money away and you're saving and you're wanting to stay out of debt. But you can still have a credit card and not be in debt.
Yep. True, right? That.
Yes,
credit, honestly, credit stumps me sometimes, because you'd think that sometimes I feel like things with credit scores are backwards. For example, my husband and I became personal debt free. So we paid off all of our student loans just this past year. And when we did that, our credit score went down. Why? Because the age of our credit then became smaller, because our student loans were some of the oldest age-wise, like loans that we had, because we had them before we ever had credit cards, before we, all these things. And so it's just funny, because you'd think that it sounds and looks better when you pay off debt. And yet when we did, it was like, we lost 10 points because we paid off our loan. It was just so silly. So yeah, I would say, is there like a good balance of how many lines of credit that somebody should have in order to have a good credit score? Or is there any kind of like magic numbers that we should recognize when it comes to credit?
If you go to like USA Experian, it'll say, oh, you have a thin file, you should have at least 5 accounts or something like that on there in order for it to look good. That's what they recommend. Personally, me, I have a mortgage, I have a credit card, my husband has a credit card. We're each on each other's as authorized users, not as joint account holders. That's all we have. So if you look at it, I have 2, he has 2, that's it. Our
Mhm.
credit score is pretty good. That's all we needed. So they try to get you to, get more credit cards, but honestly, you can have the 5 or the 6 that they say, but if you cannot manage it well, it's going to get you into trouble. What's the point? If you can manage 2 credit cards, then just stick with the 2 credit cards. All you want is to be able to build that credit. The best way to build the credit is, I always tell people, if you're going to use a credit card, just put something there every month that you have to pay every month. So let's say you're going to put your insurance payment on there every month because you have to pay that, right? So don't use a credit card as a debit or as an emergency. Take that debit card, attach, say, your car insurance on it, put the credit card away. All you're trying to do is you just want to build the credit. Every month, it charges your credit card, right? Your insurance hits that credit card, you turn around and you pay. And if you do that every month, it's going to raise your credit score. That's how people build credit. And that's what we do. Like, we only have a few things that charge on each of those 2 credit cards. And every month we turn around and pay it because we know those are things that need to get paid. We'll put, like, one of them has Netflix and Hulu on it. The other one has our car insurance on it. And that's it. And every month we turn around and pay it. So that's a good way to build your credit and to rebuild your credit. Secure credit cards is another good way to rebuild your credit as well. So if you've gone through a point where, okay, my credit is poor, I don't know what to do. If you go to Capital One, CapitalOne360.com or CapitalOne.com, there's different types of credit cards that Capital One offers, but there's one that's specifically for rebuilding credit. It's called a secure credit card. The secure credit card is the one where you actually deposit your own money. So let's just say you deposit $200. $200 will be your credit limit. So you have up to that amount to charge. So I would, that's the best way to rebuild your credit. After you've done that, say for 6 months to a year, they can convert it then to a regular credit card and they'll give you back your $200. Now, you still have to make your payments every month. Just because it's your money does not mean you don't make the payments, because it will still be, it'll hit you like a late payment. So it's just like a security for them. If you default or anything, they'll keep your $200 or something. But that's the best way to begin to rebuild your credit. Go to get a secure credit card. If you can get it through your bank, fine. But Capital One is really good for helping you rebuild your credit.
Awesome. We have a question from Lauren about pulling her credit if she doesn't necessarily need a credit score. So she has a house and they're not really planning on getting any new loans or anything. But she wants to know if she should still pull her credit report, or even if like identity theft insurance is still really important. What are your thoughts on kind of just checking your credit report?
Even if you're not going to use it for anything, you should always check your report for any type of fraud, for identity theft. If you don't want to constantly check it, then you can freeze it. They used to charge for that. They don't do it anymore, from what I understand. You can call each of the credit bureaus and you can ask them to freeze your credit report. If you don't plan on applying for anything, then go ahead and freeze it. What they do is they ask you for a password, they'll input it into the system. And if anybody tries to use your credit report, tries to apply for credit under your name, it's not going to happen because it's frozen. I also say for those who constantly want to be applying for things, it's a good way to keep you from doing it, because who wants to go through the hassle of having to call the credit bureaus and say, hey, I'm trying to apply for a MasterCard or something right now. Can you unfreeze my credit report? And I have to give the password and all of that, right? You don't want to go through the hassle.
Yeah.
Trying to open other credit lines. So it will freeze it. You can freeze your children's credit reports too to prevent them from identity theft. But what it won't prevent is if you already have a credit card and they get access to it, someone hacks it, it won't prevent that. But that's why it's good to check a credit report, because you want to make sure that if there's any type of fraudulent activity, you can stop it. You can dispute it. So Even if you don't plan on getting any types of loan, it's a really good idea to check it.
Does freezing your credit, so for example, for like, we'll just use myself, we hopefully will buy a new house, get a mortgage, probably in the next like 2 years or something. We'll say, let's just put a deadline. 2 years from now, we're planning on getting a house. Our credit score is pretty decent now. It's in the 700s. Would you recommend freezing a credit score that's really good right now if you plan to use it in the next like 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, it's not going to hurt you. It's just at the time that you plan on applying for that loan, just unfreeze it.
Cool.
Yep.
And does freezing and unfreezing a credit score do anything to it? Like, does it knock any points off for just freezing?
No, because you're not pulling your credit in any way. In fact, anytime you check your report, you're not hurting your credit in any way because that is your report. It's when you apply for something, whether you're applying for a house, a car, a credit card, they are pulling it. So that's what we call a hard inquiry. That shows on your report. So if you've ever looked at your report and you applied for any type of card, you'll see on this day, let's say JP Morgan, that's Chase card, I think it is, pulled your credit on this day. That it's because you applied for a credit card. But when you do that, keep in mind 2 things. One, your credit score is going to drop, and it could drop about 15 points. It will go back up in about a month or 2, but it will drop. That's why when you're applying for a house, a lender will say, don't apply for anything because your score will drop. And the other thing is any hard inquiries that's on your report is going to be there for 2 years. So people who are constantly applying for things throughout the year, they don't realize how that affects. When a lender looks at it, they might look at you as risky because you're applying for different things. So keep that in mind. It's not always a good idea to be going crazy trying to apply. Oh, but they say I should have at least 5 different things. Not really. No, you don't need 5 different things. Applying for 5 different things means that your credit is going to be pulled 5 different times. And you look risky to a lender when you do that.
Yeah. So when a credit score is frozen, it can still fluctuate, right? Like if you have a credit card that you stop paying all of a sudden, it's not like a magic freezer of the number. It's more protecting you from taking out any new lines of credit.
Exactly. Yep.
Perfect.
Right.
Cool. And then I had one more question on my mind that had to do, I don't remember. You had said something and I was like, I'm going to ask a question on that. The process of unfreezing it, Lauren wants to know, how difficult is that?
You just have to call them, remember your password, very important. They need to know it's you. And I'm sure they'll ask you information about your name and possibly I don't know if you've ever tried pulling your report online. It'll ask you questions from the past.
Yes. Oh
like,
my goodness.
Is your previous address? Did you live on this street? Blah, 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 right? Because they want to make sure this is who you are, right? So I'm sure they'll ask you some of those things and then they'll ask you your password. If you can answer those things, and they'll unfreeze your credit, and it's fine. It'll stay that way until you freeze it again.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally forgot. Years ago when I was like a freshman in college, my dad helped my sister buy a car, but it was originally supposed to be a car for myself. So he put it like I was a co-signer on the loan. 100% I forgot that was a thing. And so years later, when my husband and I were buying a rental property and doing credit stuff, a lender asked me when they were going through all this stuff, hey, there's a car that's on your credit report. What is this? And I was like, that's not me. And I totally thought there was fraudulent activity. And so I was like reaching out to all these credit report places and they're like, no, this is legit. And then I finally got more information and remembered and called my dad, and we had to go through this process. But still to this day, whenever I go through the process of answering those questions, when they're like, back in this year, they like have the very specific year of like I don't even remember, like 2012 or something, what car or what loan did you take out or something? And I'm like, I didn't. Like I was a freshman in college,
Yeah. I
but now
remember
I know.
yeah, when we used to, I don't do annualcreditreport.com in a while. I've been using Experian and Credit Karma, but when we first started going through annualcreditreport.com, when we were trying to work on our own credit, we could never get my husband's Experian downloaded. There was always one question that we thought we would have right. I don't even know what question it was, but he could never get it online because they said, oh, your answers weren't correct or something like that. It was like, so we'd have to go through the process of filling everything out, sending a copy of his license, whatever they requested, and then wait for it to come in the mail, which takes a long time. But yeah, they ask lots of questions of things that you don't even remember. It's like, I don't remember what street I lived in when I first moved to Florida. I'm glad they don't ask me anything from Wisconsin where I'm from, because I tell you, I will not remember because that was a long time ago.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, it is. Lauren says it freaks me out how much they know. It really does. It's like they really do know all. Yeah, paper trail. It makes that phrase like so true that you just like leave this little trail behind you wherever you go.
Right. If you look at your credit report, you'll see one credit report could have your last 5 home addresses. And the next one could have another 2 or 3 that's not on that one. It's like, wow, I don't even remember I lived there. So those are things that too that are on your credit report that they don't need to have all of that. You can actually tell them, I want that removed. This is where I currently live. That's the only address I want on there. And they'll have to remove it because you requested it. People don't know that.
I just remembered my other question. As far as so you the question was coming off of you had mentioned how long certain things stay on a credit report. One
Mhm.
question that I do get a lot just on like Instagram and things, people want to know how long do things like a bankruptcy stay on a credit report if you ever were to file for bankruptcy or anything like that, like big red flags to other lenders in the future. How long do those kind of things stay on there?
So a bankruptcy could stay on there 10 years on your report.
Wow.
Any negative credit will stay on your report for 7 years.
Man.
And that's another reason why you want to check your credit report regularly, because sometimes there will be something negative on there that should have already dropped off. Let's just say it's been 7 years and 5 months. Well, it should have not dropped off on 7 years. So if it hasn't dropped off, you can write to the credit bureaus and say, hey, this is past the time. You need to delete this on our report. And they have to do it. They have to, because it has to be, 7 years. Now, I'm talking about here in Florida. It could be different in another place. So they have to know what that statute is.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So they need to know what it is where they live and be mindful of that. Because if it has not dropped and it was supposed to, then they need to reach out to the bureaus by letter and let them know. Bankruptcy, like I said, could be 10 years. Now, just because you have a bankruptcy doesn't mean that you can't get a loan for a house. People have been able to, but you have to still rebuild your credit in order for it to happen. So just because you have a bankruptcy doesn't mean you cannot rebuild your credit. You still can. So keep that in mind and always start with a secure credit card.
Cool. Let's see. Yeah, Lauren is like, this is mind blowing. And we'll end with this last question that she had too. When it comes to like electric bills or anything like that, do those things show up on credit? Let's see, can we request things like that to be put on a credit in order to help a credit score?
So Experian has what they call Experian Boost, where if you connect your checking account with them, it will scan it to see. I think it scans for utilities. It will scan for your cell phone. I'm not sure what the other one scans for, but it will scan it to see if you're making your payments. And what it will do is it will only report the positive payment. So let's just say that you made a late payment to Verizon. I have Verizon.
Mhm.
It won't even put it on there, but
Mm.
it will report the positive payments. Now, the thing about Boost is I tried it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to boost your score. It's called Experian Boost for a reason because it's supposed to boost your score. It doesn't always mean it will, but it's okay for you to try it. So for example, I said, well, let me try to see what happens. So I tried it and my score actually went down maybe 5-6 points, right? I'm like, whoa, no. So all I had to do was go back and disconnect. And my score went right back to where it was. I haven't tried it lately, but you can do it. Just go ahead and connect your checking account from the checking account where you're paying your utility, and things like that, electric bill, cell phones, and it'll scan it. And if it works, it'll grab it, and then you'll see immediately the change in your score. And then you can decide if it boosted your score, great, leave it, don't disconnect it. If it lowered your score, feel free to disconnect. It's not going to hurt you, and wait again in a few months and just try it again. It doesn't do anything, doesn't hurt you whatsoever. It only hurts if it goes down and you leave it that way. Just disconnect this.
Man, there are so many things, like, again, like just like I started out, there's so many things that I didn't know about credit. I'm like, I feel like I at least have kind of a general idea. And then it's like Cyndia comes and it's just like, boom, all these like golden nuggets of truth coming at you. Yeah, this has been extremely helpful. And honestly, I feel like this opens the door for so many more questions that people who are watching this may have. So I want to know, what is the best way to get in touch with you, as well as tell us more about, someone who might be watching this is like, hey, I have a low credit score. I'm planning on buying a house in the next few years. How can you help me? What can you do for me? Things like that. So share with us.
Sure. So I have two things. I have a 45-minute session that I offer, where I will educate you on a lot of these things that we talked about. It's like a one-on-one coaching session. We're going through your personal credit report, everything that's on there, what you need to look at, what you need to focus on, why your credit score is the way it is. If there's anything in collections that need to be taken care of, we look at that. I will provide them after our session. I will send an email with an action plan, everything we discussed, and the letter templates that they can use, and who they should go to. I offer a 45-minute session on that, and currently launching my credit coaching boot camp for 8 weeks. That's exciting. That's going to be fun. It's a live group coaching program that every week for 8 weeks, they'll get a video, they'll get assignments, and we'll have one call every week to discuss what the video was about, answer any questions that they have. We'll do coaching, we'll learn from each other there. And it's just more hands-on, and it's, walking you through it slowly throughout those 8 weeks. Launching that, it's as of now, it's already out there. You have the link, I sent it to you, but I'm only opening that to 10 people. 10 people for this 8 weeks. So, and for the first 5 people, you get $100 off if they register from here to July 5th. After that, it goes up in price. Wow. So you have the link if you want to share that. So they can do either one. They can do the credit coaching boot camp for 8 weeks, or they can do a 45-minute session with me, and we'll just go through their report.
Perfect. Yes. And for anyone watching this, I will have the links below this video to all of Cyndia's content, including Instagram, where she does also post lots of fun stuff. I follow her there. And yeah, so this is awesome. I super, super appreciate your time today, educating myself, educating Lauren, who's here with us, and educating whoever's watching this in the future. And I highly recommend taking these tips to heart. Anyone who's watching this, just listen and definitely do what we've been taught tonight. Again, just that example of a current client of mine who found out that they had $10,000 of a credit card, an old credit card on their report. Things like that can be really detrimental, especially if you're finding out about that when you're trying to get a loan, to secure a loan, whether it's a mortgage or a car, even student loans, anything like that you have coming up. don't wait to find out about them until it's too late or until you're in the process of trying to secure something. Because then at that point, the only thing you can do is just pray that the person has, you know, that you're trying to get a loan from has a good program that you can tap into. But chances are it's going to be kind of tough. So listen and do something about it now when there's still time in between getting that loan.
Yeah, and if they stick to the process, guarantee they're going to see changes. I've seen it happen. I have a couple that I worked with a few years ago, one income family, four in the household, and we work with financial coaching. But because he had everything, he took care of all of that. This year, it creates his score went up, and he's now in the middle of signing for a house, like closing on his house, and he's all excited about it.
Yeah.
Now, another client who she had like 14 credit cards, and it's like, okay, let's walk through this. And she says, I want to refinance my home, but my score is not where it is. Okay, these are the things you need to start paying down. And she started to do that. And like within 4 or 5 months, she was able to refinance her house and got incredible rates, because you know how the rates went really well last year. So she did that too. So she just followed the process. Sometimes it's simple. Other times it's a little bit more, more involved, but it definitely can happen.
Definitely.
All I say, my recommendation is do it yourself. Just learn how to do it. Don't throw your money at a credit repair company. Take that money. You need it. You need it to pay off the debt.
Awesome. Yes. Perfect. Again, thank you so much for your time, Cyndia. It has been such a blessing. And yes, I know that we will be in touch.
Thank you so much. This was exciting. I love it. I like talking about credit. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me in any of the links that you send. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, my website, the page you're going to share. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions whatsoever. I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks again.
All righty. You guys have a great one.